this is everything you need to know for the Continental Classic. So I'm going to start off just by giving all the participants to you guys, giving the rules to you guys, and then we'll break it down and I'll discuss my predictions and who I think is going to win and who I think should win. So in the Continental Classic, each match is going to have a time limit of 20 minutes, similar to how the G1 Climax was this year. You'll get 3 points for a win and 1 point for a draw, obviously 0 points for a loss. Another side note for the tournament, everybody is banned from ringside. That means it is pure one-on-one competition, which I'm super happy about. There are 6 competitors placed in 2 different groups, the blue group and the gold group. The winner of each group will go on to face each other at AEW's World's End pay-per-view coming up on the 30th of December this year, and the winner of that will be crowned first AEW Continental Champion, as well as the first American Triple Crown Champion, as we know Eddie Kingston is putting up his ROH World Championship and his New Japan Strong Championship on the line in this tournament. So by the end of it, you'll be holding 3 titles. Now with the rules and regulations out the way, let's get into the participants. In the blue group, we have Andrade El Idolo. Since his return, Andrade has been featured solely on AEW Collision, so I'm super happy to see him in this tournament. Hopefully he can do well. Let's see how it goes for him. Next up, we have Bryan Danielson, who announced his participation when they announced the tournament. And this is a tournament made for Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson has been someone we've wanted in the G1 Climax for years. This is the tournament made for him. Next up, we have, of course, Eddie Kingston, who is putting up his 2 titles up for grabs in this tournament. And I think it's going to be a big task for him to actually go ahead and win this whole thing and keep championships. And then we have Brody King from the House of Black. After Brody King's performance in the ladder match this past week at Full Gear, he definitely deserves to be in this tournament. And I think he gives a different aspect in terms of being a bigger guy in the tournament. Then we have Claudio Castagnoli, who is of course a former ROH World Champion and someone else who we'd like to see in a G1 Climax one day. And he is in the blue group. It's going to be interesting to see when him and Bryan Danielson face off, considering they're both from the BCC. And then lastly, in the blue group, we got Daniel Garcia, who I think is perfect for this type of tournament. Yes, he's going to take a few losses, but I just think his style, if we get the wrestler Daniel Garcia, is perfect for this type of tournament. And then we move on to the gold group, where we have Mark Briscoe, who has already been announced, and I'm super happy for Mark Briscoe. It's been a rough year, as we know, for Mark Briscoe. This is the type of tournament which I think he can excel in, and let's see what he does. Next up, we have another member from the BCC in John Moxley. John Moxley, another person who is just made for a tournament like this, made for a round-robin tournament. Hopefully, he can stay nice and injury-free throughout this tournament. And next up, we have probably the hottest wrestler in AEW right now, fresh off his amazing Texas Death Match with Hangman Adam Page, and that is Swerve Strickland. I think this is a dark horse. I don't even think you can call it a dark horse. Swerve Strickland is one of the contenders to win the whole tournament. And then we have Roosh. Roosh has been on a tear of late, and he definitely deserves to be in a tournament like this, and I'm excited to see what he can do, especially with the competition he's coming up against. And next up, we have someone I'm super happy for, Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal has been used so poorly. Jay Lethal has been involved in silly storylines. He's involved with Jeff Jarrett, and I'm glad there's going to be no interference. We get wrestler Jay Lethal in this tournament. And then lastly, we get Jay White, who's hoping to regain some of that momentum. He may have lost against MJF, and I'm hoping he can do so. Jay White is, of course, no stranger to a round-robin type tournament. He's competed in several G1 climaxes, so he might have the upper hand in this tournament. Okay, so with the participants now being announced, and with us knowing who is going to feature in the Continental Classic, let's go through the names and let's see where they rank in terms of their potential to actually win the tournament. Now, Andrade El Idolo, I think he's got like a mediocre chance of winning this tournament. I don't see him winning it. I do think a big factor that tells us he's not going to win it is the fact that there's a New Japan Strong title on the line. And we know with his links to his Mexican promotion, I think Andrade is from AAA and New Japan have links with CMLL. So I think that's where the issue comes in. So I don't think he really has much of a chance. Then we have Bryan Danielson, who I think is white hot and could potentially come out on top in this tournament. I think it's made for him. I think he could potentially be a finalist. Next up, we have Eddie Kingston, another person. I think he could be a finalist. I think if he's going to lose those titles, it might be in the final. If he's not going to lose them, he might just win the whole damn thing himself. But only one of them can go through this group. Only one of them can go through this group. So Eddie Kingston might lose his titles in this group. Then we have Brody King. I don't see Brody King having too much of a chance to win this tournament, but you can never say never. Then we have Claudio Castagnoli, who's another person who I think could make it to the final, But with the likes of Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston in his group, I don't think that's possible. Then we ended off with Daniel Garcia, who I think has probably the least chance in this group to win this tournament or to even advance into the next stage, into the final. So I think we can draw a conclusion that Daniel Garcia will not win. Then in the gold group, we have Mark Briscoe. And unfortunately, I would love it for Mark Briscoe to make it to the final, but I don't think he's going to make it. I think he's got a decent chance. I'll put him in that mediocre category. Then we have Jon Moxley, who can absolutely make it to the final. We could see a BCC final in Jon Moxley versus Claudio or Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson. That could be something that we see. Then we have Swerve Strickland, who's another person that can absolutely make it to that final easily. He's the hottest thing in AEW, like I mentioned earlier, and I think they should do it. I think they should put Swerve in that final and potentially win it. And then we have Roosh, who I think falls in the same category as Andrade, but don't quote me on that. So I don't see that being a possibility, but I do think he's going to have absolutely banger matches. And then we have Jay Lethal, who I would love to get far in this tournament. I don't think he's going to get very far. I think he's going to eat some pinfalls, unfortunately, which is sad to say because he's such a talented wrestler. And then we ended with Jay White, who is another person who could definitely make the final. So I think in this group, definitely Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, and Jay Lethal that could make the final. One of those three could be in the final. And that's the Continental Tournament. Personally, the person I would have win the whole tournament is probably Bryan Danielson. Probably is Bryan Danielson. I think the guy needs a win in AEW. A big win in AEW. He hasn't won titles. He's lost to certain people. I just think he needs a big win. If it's not Bryan Danielson, for me, Swerve Strickland. One of those two. One of those two has to be the winner, and both potentially should be in the final because that was a great match that we got on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago now. So I'm going to go with Bryan Danielson, but if Swerve Strickland wins it, I'm happy as can be. Happy as can be. And that is everything you need to know for the Continental Classic. I'm super excited for it. This kind of feels like old school AEW for some reason. It feels like something that we should have had and that we need. It feels like 2019 AEW, and I don't know why. The matches are going to be absolutely bangers. And I'm excited, guys. I hope you guys are too. So with that being said, see you guys next time. Take care. Let me know down in the comments who you think should win this. And yeah, see you guys next time. Peace.